Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today has been a pretty exciting day, although it's been a bit of a long one, because they pushed the first patch of 9.2 to the PTR. So they've allowed us to get on the PTR and start testing some things for the new patch. Some things that they have added are all of the tier sets are on the PTR now, so you can go ahead and test those. They've added some like healing trinkets and some PvP trinkets. They've also added some of the campaign for the new zone. You can go to the new zone, that kind of thing. So there's a decent amount of stuff to do on the PTR if you're interested in that. But the reason I wanted to make this video is because I've made a couple videos recently where I have been pretty critical of the tier set bonus. And it has all been on paper, right? Because I haven't had any actual data to back it up of people playing with the tier set bonus and what it actually does in the game, right? But now that the PTR is available, we can start to gather some of that data, right? So I've been on the PTR for the last 6 or 7 hours or so, something like that, just doing a whole bunch of testing with the new tier set to see exactly how it performs. And I wanted to make this video to talk about some of the things that I've noticed. So there are some interesting problems with the tier set bonus. First off, let's talk about the tier set itself. So Blizzard has announced recently that they'll be changing this tier set. This is the old version. So the version that they put on the PTR is the one all about Dark Thoughts, right? So the two-piece is the additional 5% chance per shadow damage over time effect on the target, and then the 4-piece is the living shadow guy who comes out and starts attacking, right? So I thought it was still worthwhile to test this tier set, strictly because the 4-piece is likely going to be very similar to how it is currently. They have mentioned, they made a blue post where they said that the 2-piece bonus is going to change its focus from Dark Thoughts to Devouring Plague. So we don't really care too much about how the 2-set bonus feels currently, because it's not going to be like this in the future. But we do care about the 4-set bonus because in their own words, they said that the 4-piece will remain largely unchanged. Now, what that actually means is kind of up for interpretation, right? So some people think that what that means is they're going to change it so that it is based on Devouring Plague, like the 2-piece. Some people think that it means that it will you can stack multiple of them, or you can have several shades at the same time kind of thing, or they can target things in AoE, do AoE damage, that kind of thing. And what actually is going to be the case is still undecided, right? I don't even know if Blizzard knows. So what I'm going to do, and what I have done today, is I took them at face value and I thought, okay, let's say largely unchanged. What does that mean? Well, that means it's probably going to be, in my opinion, it'll probably be closer to what it is now than being far away from what it is now. So it's worth testing it. I imagine they'll still have this shadow guy. I imagine it'll still do what it does currently, basically, that kind of thing, with maybe some little caveats. So I figured it was worth testing the 4-piece, and that's what the focus of this video is going to be on. I will also mention there are some really interesting gearing questions as far as these slots are concerned. You have 3 of these slots that are domination socket slots. There is a question of, are the shards going to be doing anything in the new patch? They may have already said this somewhere, that the shards are not going to do anything, or that they plan on still having the shards do stuff. I am just not aware of if they've said that, so if they have said that the shards aren't going to work in 9.2, then that's a moot point. But if they haven't said that, then it's really a hard question, because you're going to want 3, if they do work, you're going to want all 3 DPS shards if you can manage it, because the set bonus will certainly not work because we're no longer in the Maw. So you're going to want all 3 DPS shards for sure, but you also have 4 slots that need to be tier pieces, and tier pieces can't be domination socket pieces, right? So that throws in some questions. And then the other thing is, you need 2 slots now for legendaries rather than just 1, right? So right now I've got Pilot Command on my sandals, but I would like to be playing Talbadar's Stratagem or Shadowflame Prism, something like that. And that would take another armor slot, right? So we've got 3 systems to kind of juggle here, and the way I've got my my priest set up right now, I think is probably going to be what you want to do at the very, very beginning before you have your second legendary, like within the first week or two. I think you're going to want to keep one 259 piece, either your headpiece or your shoulders, as a domination socket, and then the other one can be the tier set, and then you want the chest tier set, the legs, and the hands for sure. And then you can run the wrists and the belt from the raid and also have domination sockets. And then once you get the second legendary, it throws all sorts of wrenches into the mix, and it's going to be quite the thing to figure out. So I look forward to testing that stuff in the coming weeks. But that's not the focus of this video. The focus of this video is the 4-piece bonus. So let's talk about some of the notes that I've written regarding the 4-set bonus. So I guess first off, what we can do is just start hitting a dummy. So let's target this guy, put a couple dots on it, because that's gonna, while we do have the 2-set bonus, we can abuse it, right? So make it so that we get more Dark Thoughts procs. So I'm gonna just hit this guy with some Mind Flays and then my dots, and then we got one, and this is what it looks like. This guy spawns out of you, and he starts channeling this Mind Flay looking ability into the enemy, and eventually he'll stop and he'll go away. Sometimes he starts, sometimes he stops, that kind of thing. And that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about. So you will have noticed that I had these 2 weak auras that popped up over here. This one and then this one as well. So the first one, the one on top here, is the buff that you get that tracks how long your shadow is going to be alive. So that's called the Living Shadow buff. And it starts at 8 seconds, which is the duration on the tier set bonus. And it just counts down, right? But the Shade has an animation when it spawns that takes, you know, about 2 seconds, maybe 2.5 seconds, maybe a little less than 2 seconds. It's not consistent from my testing. Sometimes the Shade will spawn within the first second and a half, so by like 6.5 or something. Right there it spawned by like 6.4, 6.3. But that's some time that you lose from that buff, right, where it's not channeling. And then it starts channeling once it's fully out, and that's what this bottom one is. When it channels, it puts a debuff on your enemy. That's this debuff right here, called Torment Mind. And Torment Mind is the channel. So if you've been testing this and you've noticed that your Shade will randomly stop channeling and then will start channeling again, that is likely the reason why, is it ran out of a channel. So then it has to recast and do it again, right? So that's the first thing. There is this weird, I mean, it looks pretty cool. This shadow like pops out of you and everything, but it is not 8 seconds like the tier set says it should be, right? It lives for 8 seconds, but it does not channel for 8 seconds. And even if you stack up a bunch of time, like right now I'm at 25 seconds, which is the next thing I'll talk about. Even if you stack up a bunch of time, there are moments of downtime where, see, it's at like 3 seconds. Once this hits 0, it'll stop channeling. It does nothing, and then it channels again, right? So there's a moment of downtime there where it's not actually doing anything. And that, I think, is... it's hard to say, because it's probably, for the sake of like flavor and immersion and all that stuff, it probably makes sense for it to, you know, stop channeling every so often so it can recast, right? But as far as damage is concerned, I really dislike an ability that just randomly does not do damage. I wish they would just make this one buff, or even just make it a debuff when I cast this thing, that it spawns, puts a debuff on the target that is the length of this, and it's just one long channel. I don't want it to, you know, stop channeling every so often. That's very annoying. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about, is it will stop channeling every so often, and that's why. It's because it has the duration. Once the duration ends, it stops and has to recast. The next thing I'll talk about is, you may have noticed already, but if you consume a Dark Thoughts proc to generate the Shade, and then you consume another one, so here we go, there's one, and hopefully there's 2, the duration goes up by 8 seconds every time you consume a Dark Thoughts proc. So we're at over 20 seconds now of this Living Shadow, because we've had several Dark Thoughts procs in a row. This is interesting. I actually don't mind this. This is a good solution to the problem that I was having before, or that I at least thought it might have, where if you consume a Dark Thoughts proc while you have your shadow out, you just lose it, right? You don't get the duration of the shade. But that's not the case. You can stack this pretty far. I've had it stacked over a minute. And it'll just sit there and channel and then stop and then channel again and then stop and then channel again, right? For the whole duration. Actually, I wonder if you can cancel it. You can. You can cancel RA as well. So that's interesting, but I don't know why you would ever cancel it. Anyway, so yeah, so that's the other thing I wanted to mention. That's how that works. And then another thing that's worth mentioning is the targeting of this shadow. So if we spend our Dark Thoughts proc on this guy, it's targeting this guy for now, right? So we can keep hitting this guy and see if it changes ever. I have had times, and I thought I had this figured out, where depending on what you're targeting, it'll attack different things, right? So let's see how it goes now. It swapped targets to this dummy, and then now that we're in combat with both dummies, let's see if we send another one on this dummy on the left, what will it target? Because I've had varying results with this test. So there we go, we sent it, and it's targeting the dummy on the right. So it's not targeting my target currently, right? What it's doing is it's targeting the closest thing that I'm in combat with. So you may have noticed this if I were to pop all my CDs right here, right? So I'm just going to focus this guy. I'm going to use my CDs. It puts me in combat with 3 of these things now. And then as I start hitting them, I sent a Dark Thoughts proc, and it hits the closest one. And even if we move, so now we're over here, we use our Dark Thoughts proc again, it's now targeting this close one, right? Instead of that far one that it was targeting before. And the important thing to note is that it's not targeting my target, right? So this will mean, if this is how it continues to be, that you need to be aware of that interaction, right? Because it's not even what you use your Dark Thoughts proc on, it's just the closest thing that you're in combat with. So that could throw up a lot of issues if you're in raid and there's something that you need to not hit that you're in combat with that's close to you. You just won't be able to use your shadow, right? Because your shadow is not guaranteed, at least as far as I can tell. It will always hit the closest target that you're in combat with. So again, let's see. Yeah, so I'm in combat with this guy, it hits this guy. We go over to this far guy, get in combat with it, it's now hitting it, right? So that's something that is not intuitive from the description. It says it does the damage to your target, and that is not how it works. So this is something that I'll include in my feedback that I plan on posting on the forums. So, by the way, there is a forum post that Blizzard has left for you to go ahead and put feedback on these tier set bonuses. I'll leave a link to it in the description if you want to go tell Blizzard how you feel about this yourself. So I'm going to make a post there. I may update the description once I've done that to have a link to my post if you want to see what I had to say, but probably not. I'll probably just leave a link to the whole thing itself, the whole feedback thread itself. But okay, so that's one of the really big problems that I noticed. Pretty sure it's unintended, probably a bug. What else? So you will have noticed that the shade is basically channeling a mind flay. This mind flay that it channels doesn't give you any insanity. So I just got 2 there from an apparition, but now I should get no more insanity except from my vampiric touch or my shadow word pain, and I got none, right? So it does not generate insanity, which is probably a good thing because we already have too much insanity generation, especially during our cooldowns. So it doesn't generate insanity. It also doesn't proc Dark Thoughts itself. So if you have a shade going, the only way to get more Dark Thoughts procs is from your own Mind Flay, which is, it's probably good, but it's a little unfortunate. It would be interesting if this could proc itself, right? And you could, like, passively get a bunch of Dark Thoughts procs that you can spend. But I don't know, it's probably, at least as far as, like, GCDs are concerned, it's a good thing that it doesn't proc Dark Thoughts. What else does it say? Do I have written down here? It's got an animation when it spawns that we talked about that causes the first 2 to 2.5 seconds. It's inconsistent first 2 to 2.5 seconds of the buff to be wasted. Only starts channeling once it's fully out, and there's like 5.5 to maybe 6.5 seconds left on the buff. Another thing I wanted to mention was that consuming a Dark Thoughts proc with a shade already out adds 8 seconds to the duration. I was unable to find a maximum duration for this. I sat there on a dummy for maybe half an hour or so, just going through my rotation over and over and over again, trying to extend the shadow for as long as I could. And I got to like 65, 67 seconds like that of the buff before I was finally like, okay, I don't know why you would ever go further than this. Because you're never going to have a half an hour boss fight. At least I really hope we don't, right? So I don't know if there is a maximum or what the purpose would even be of having a maximum. But it does add to the duration, which is interesting to know, especially if you get to a point where you need to stop DPS, right? Your raid leader's like, okay, stop DPS. Well, I've got a 40-second buff that I can't stop. Well, I guess you can stop it if you just cancel aura it, but you would rather, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. You will have to cancel it, right? Let's see what else. So, because it adds 8 seconds to the duration, you're better off chaining them. So having a long duration of the buff will be more uptime than if you just do 8 seconds, let it fall off, do another 8 seconds, let it fall off, do another 8 seconds, let it fall off. Because the downtime between channels, when you have like a 20-second buff or whatever, is shorter than the downtime of this when it first spawns. That downtime is longer than this downtime coming up in 3 seconds. As you'll see now, it's down, it's up, right? That's faster than when you first spawn the shade. We can take a look at that actually. So down, up, and then when you spawn the shade, it's 1, 2, then goes, right? So you're better off DPS-wise getting a long buff as long as you can. You would really like to chain these back to back to back rather than using it, waiting until it falls off, using it again, right? Because you'll have more uptime of that channel, right? So yeah, that should be your goal, to extend the 4-piece as long as possible. The shade does scale with haste. So if I've got like 33% haste, so let's see if I can get another shade real quick, and we'll look at the duration of this one right here. It's about 6 seconds. It's at least over 5 seconds for when it's channeling. Let's watch it again. It's 6 seconds almost exactly, right? But then if we go ahead and hit PI, this next one, it's only 4.8, right? So this means that it's ticking faster. It's a shorter duration, 4.8 again, right? So it does scale with haste, right? It is hasted, which is important to know as well, because it means that you're going to want to line it up with haste cooldowns, right? So it's better to use your shade during PI and during Lust. You'll get more ticks rather than being outside of those things, right? So that's interesting to know. There is no way to force it to change target without just stepping closer to whatever you want it to hit, right? So I did make macros that are like /pet attack or /pet assist, those things. I did test those to see if I could change what it was targeting, but the only way that I've found to consistently change what it's targeting is to just get in combat with something else, the other thing you want it to target, and stand closer to that and make that the closest thing to you, right? Because as far as I can tell, that's how the targeting works. I will also mention, and this will be the last thing that I talk about before we wrap up the video, I just need to get a little bit further away at about max range. This shade does have a range for how far it can hit things, and it's further than the regular priest range. So this is an interesting interaction. If we can get another shade real quick. There we go. Let it start channeling, and then we run away. I can't hit this target, but it's still hitting it, right? So that's something interesting. Let's see if we can do it again, just real quick. Because this is another moment where if it's doing this, and you need to stop damage, it's still going to be doing damage through that duration, right? So that's something else to keep in mind once you are using this set bonus in the raid. Which, by the way, raid testing will be, the first raid testing is about 12 hours, 11 hours from when I'm making this video. So hope to see you guys there. That's basically all I have to say. I guess to wrap it up, I'll just say I am not super excited about the 4-piece bonus. It feels pretty underwhelming currently. The damage it does is okay. It's like in the top 5 of our damage sources, at least when you're doing the regular rotation, not like trying to fish for procs or anything. So the damage is not too bad. I think the animation's pretty cool. Again, I'm not a huge fan of just having a beam like this. I don't really love this, so I don't think that's too awesome, but as far as damage goes, it's not bad. And then it does, if you are going to try and like fish for procs and things, it will change the rotation quite considerably. But I'm just going to throw that out the window because they have already said they're going to change the 2-piece bonus. So all in all, not the best tier set, not as bad as I thought it would be, and there's a lot of hope because they are changing it. The things that I've mentioned in this video, though, the ones that especially are like, I think, bugs, like the fact that it changes to whatever target is closest to you that you're in combat with, those things I dislike, but that's the whole point of PTR testing, is to identify those things so that they can be brought to light and be fixed, right? So let me know what you guys think of this in the description below. Not in the description, in the comments below. I would love to, talk to you guys more about this, so feel free to check the description for a link to my Discord server. There's links to my Twitter, my Twitch, and everything in there as well if you want to catch me on any of those platforms. And then, yeah, I'm looking forward to 9.2. Looking forward to making more of these videos and talking to you guys more. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!